Alrighty, folks. Hello. Welcome. My name's John Theodore. I stream iRacing at twitch.tv/John underscore A underscore Theodore. Uh, Recorded version of all my races I put up on youtube.com/John Theodore. Today, though, I'm not racing. I want to walk you through something that I recorded a while back, but I did it incorrectly. I said I was going to redo it, and I haven't gotten around to doing it until now. I'm hoping that this is going to become the first part in a series where I kind of, impart some of my advice and some wisdom, things that I've learned uh, in about 4 years now that I've been on iRacing, and about 2 years that I've been streaming and things like that. I've gotten better. I'm still working on getting better. Hopefully, we can learn things and get better together. So the first thing, though, this video though that I'm doing is my button mapping tutorial. And the first time that I shot it, I did it incorrectly because the relative box, the black boxes that I was setting up to control on the screen, were not actually there. So first thing, you're going to go into options, and I actually need to move the view over a little bit so you can see where it is. I've got my game view zoomed in a little bit, but if you see over here, the options, that's what we want to click on. So we're going to click on that, and now that's done, I'm going to move it back because I actually keep the game a bit more centered in the screen than that. So we'll just put that back, and I might have to readjust that. But you got a number of different options, and you guys have already seen this screen when you calibrated your wheel and things like that. And there's some other things. We're not going to go through all the different things that are available today. What we are going to do is we are going to go into the controls menu. Now you've got a number of different options, way more options here than you're going to have if you have, unless you have like a huge button box with all kinds of different stuff. You can get crazy with, setting very specific things to different hotkeys, in the game. So what I use for my wheel, and I'm going to swing around. I'm actually going to use the camera here to show the wheel primarily, which is going to be a different angle than a lot of you guys see. But there is my Fanatec CSL Elite racing wheel. And so it's got 4 buttons over here. I just went ahead and left the Xbox button caps on there because I actually found those easier to differentiate, and they made a little bit more sense for me versus the alternatives, because I've got things mapped and to not necessarily match up with what the button caps they give you are. And then over here, I've got a couple more buttons here, and then another 4 buttons and a hat switch over here. Now, not all of you are going to have exactly the same button layout like this, but this is not very many buttons, and you're actually going to, most wheels will at the very least have, this many buttons, about 10 buttons plus a hat switch or some kind of directional pad or something like that. And we got the big button down here in the center, which I always like to, there's usually one big button that kind of makes sense for that I like to use as a reset button for the car. That is a personal preference. You can totally use that for something else and use the escape button or the escape key for that. But the way that you're going to do this is each one of these things that you're going to want to set is going to correspond to a different one. Now you've got, iRacing recently added ignition and starter so that you can start up the car and stuff like that. I leave that alone, but it's good to know what those are. Pit speed limiter. Default is A. We had an issue with that at one point in the in the 24 hours of Daytona where I didn't know where that was, and I spent an entire lap riding around on there. So that's very important to know if you do a lot of oval track stuff and you go into an endurance race and one of your teammates leaves the pit limiter on when they exit the vehicle and you're going to need to disable it. Know that the iRacing default is A if you haven't specifically set a button to the pit speed limiter. Now I said that there were 10 buttons usable. On this wheel, actually, there are less than that because this, here, I'm going to pull this back a little bit. If I hit this settings wrench, you see how that changed there? That is a reserved button for the Fanatic wheel. So I don't use that. I also don't use these two menu buttons here to the right of the hat switch because I believe those are reserved for wheel functions and things like that, so I don't use those. I only use LSB, LT over here, the two buttons to the left of the hat switch itself, and then these four A, X, W, B buttons over here, RSB and RT buttons right here, and the big X in the middle. So I'm going to show you guys what I have these set to, which is my primary thing, and I'm going to show you how it works in the car in a second. That I like to have these set to is navigating the black boxes. There's a whole lot of stuff that you can do in the car with the black boxes during the race. They give you a whole lot of information that's very important to you, especially if you don't have an external digital pit box like that guy right there like I have, or caps or something like that that's doing fuel mileage. You're going to need to be switching sometimes between the relative over to the fuel, over to setting your brake bias, which I highly recommend setting it all the way forward when you're coming onto pit road, and then setting it back. Doing all that stuff can be very complicated if you're trying to, pull up a keyboard and mess around with hitting buttons and keys and stuff like that on a keyboard while you're trying to race. I know some people do that. I see some people typing stuff in text chat while they're racing. I have never understood how they're able to do that. I've never been able to do that. I always am, I like to keep both of my hands on the wheel, and so I map these buttons to things that I can easily reach with one thumb or the other so that I can, have both hands on the wheel and be able to make the adjustments that I need, during a race. So the first ones here are next black box and previous black box. I set those here. Next black box is B. Previous black box is the X, or if you have something like that. But basically, kind of think of these two as next page, previous page. Simple like that. Now, the one thing where, I could have a pit limiter set on my wheel is that I could have had it set to this Y button here. What I have that for is the tear off visor is up here. So that's what I have that set for, but that's kind of the one free button where I could set it to something else. So you have these individual keys here, F1 through F10 for all the different black boxes. I kind of leave those as are. That's a good reference in terms of referring to which black box corresponds to which menu. So F1 is lap timing, F2 is standings, F3 is the relative, F4 is the fuel, F5 is tires. That's super important for different tire strategies. F6 is your tire info. That's going to show your wear percentages. F7 is the pit stop adjustments black box. That one you're not going to use if you're in fixed races. There's nothing you can use there. F8 is your in-car adjustments. That's where your brake bias is going to be. And also if you're in the oval A car, that is where you're going to be able to switch between the different dashboards. F9 is your mirror adjustments. F10 is your radio channels. That can be important if you're switching between different radio channels and stuff like that. So the next ones that I have, these are going to be mapped to the hat switch down here. So I set next black box and previous black box, and now I'm going to set next control, previous control, increment selected control, and decrement selected control. So select next control is going to be actually to the left. Nope, that's not it. How did I have it set? Down? There we go. Down on that. Select previous control is going to be up on the hat switch. Increment selected control, I believe, goes to the right. And then decrement selected control goes to the left, and I'll show you in the black boxes what those mean. That was the part that was missing from the first time I did this video. Then we're going to have toggle selected control, and that's where I use the A button. That's basically a selection. Then the other couple that I do map on here, and like I said, there are a couple buttons that I could use for some other things, but I actually am, I have this button here mapped to turn on and off and to cycle through the lap timing. I have RT and LT mapped to look left and look right in the car. Occasionally you do need to do that to clear yourself, especially if you don't have someone spotting for you. I don't have this LSB button mapped to anything, I don't believe, so that could be where my pit limiter could go. Actually, you know what? Just to make everyone happy, we're going to put that over there. So the pit limiter has now been set. I found a free spot for it on my wheel, and that's where so I've got a pit limiter now. It's set, it's done. All right, so we're going to get into the car, and now we're going to show you guys what this looks like. So again, I'm going to push X on my wheel, and you see how it cycled over the standings. I push X again, and we're at the lap timing. So again, we're going to go through these menus one by one, and I'm going to reiterate again what these do. B cycles to the next menu. We're at standings again. This is going to be the standings in sequence. This updates at the end of each lap. This is also a great place to see. Usually when I'll have this sort of scrolled to the position in the field where I can see where the break point is for where cars are on the lead lap. That can sometimes be useful to switch over to quickly if it's, you know, if we just had a quick caution trying to determine whether it's worth potentially losing a number of spots, how many spots I might risk losing if I decide to make a pit stop. When I said, by the way, that this RSB button right here, this one that I had mapped, was to toggle the reference laps, that's there. I can just push that, and every time I push it, it cycles through all those and then comes off. So what I like to do usually is all-time best lap or opt lap, or if I'm in a long practice session opt lap for the first lap that I'm out on new tires, and then a couple clicks over to the last lap, and then you just kind of use that. I like to leave session last lap up. You'll see me and a lot of other guys have that last lap one up during a race, so you're always comparing to your previous lap, which can be good on a long run as you're trying out different lines as the tires change, seeing if you're hunting for a new line to work. That can be useful. Relative standings. That's going to update in real time and show your relative position to the cars in front and behind you, and it will also show you, unlike the other standings, you'll have lap down and lap cars that are on a different lap than you, interspersed with their position on track. So it's all about your relative position to those cars on track. It does show where they are positionally in the race. You're going to be displayed in yellow. Cars on the same lap as you are displayed, that are either in front or behind you on the same lap as you, are displayed in white text. If you see a car, someone's name on there that is in blue text, that means that they are either, if they're behind you, they're either a lap or more down behind you, or if they're in front of you, that means that that's not for position. You are catching that car to lap them. Vehicles displayed, drivers' names displayed in red text are a lap in front of you, or if it's the leader coming up the first time to lap you, he'll be displayed in red text too. You'll still be on the same lap as him, but when he's coming up to pass you, he is putting a lap on you. That's not for position. So that's how that's indicated on the relative. Fuel. You can switch. See, I have this hat switch here. I'm switching. I can increase or decrease how much fuel to put in the car. By going left, I decrease. By going to the right, I increase it. Now, if I use the hat switch and move it down, I can switch between the other toggleable options. Now, if I'm out on the track, which I'll do that real quick just so we can show that. Move forward a little bit. You see that begin fueling pops up. So if I hit the A button there, while I'm on the add or remove fuel, I can toggle whether or not to begin fueling. I can go down to the windshield tear off and I can toggle that. If there are fast repairs enabled in your series, you can toggle that as well. Tires. Now on oval track cars, you'll only have the option to replace left or right. And if you're in an open setup race, then I can go through here and I can adjust tire pressure, left to go down, right to go up on each one, or I can toggle to change the left and right side tires. Now in some series, they'll have those tires will be individually selectable. In oval track series now, and that used to be the case in oval. Now that you just select lefts as a group or rights as a group, change lefts or rights, it's one toggle click. And if you're on the left rear or the right front, you can go up from the right front to go to the left's toggle, down from the left rear to go to the right's toggle, or if you start by default, you're on the left front, go up to the right rear, so that it's just one movement up or down, which can be super handy if you're under caution in the race. You need to make a real quick change. You'll probably be on F3 and you're like, I want to do 2 tires over there. So 2 clicks with the B, it's already on the left's toggle. Next menu, tire info. Can be really handy after you make a pit stop and you're not hunting around on the keyboard, where's the F6, geez, and hit it. Just from your relative, 1 to 3 clicks, you're on there. That'll show you your tires. Really useful a lot of times in the race to be able to do that. F7, pit stop adjustment. Left rear spring, this is wedge adjustment. So back, you're taking wedge out of the right rear or out of the left rear, or you're increasing it just like that. Right to add, left to take it away. Next menu, brake bias. I will use this a lot, and then again, you're in the A car, you can change the dash displays and things like that. Increased brake bias will make the car a little bit tighter under braking. It puts more of the greater percentage of the brake pressure to the front of the car, so that you get it'll tighten up the car a little bit on braking. I like to throw that all the way forward because it can make it more stable under really hard braking when you're stopping for a pit stop or coming in on old tires. And then to the left will make the car a little bit looser on entry. You don't want to get too loose, but you can, if you're disciplined with your braking, you can save a little bit, particularly on the right front under braking, and it's often good to be a little bit looser and a little bit faster on entry. So you see a lot of guys, a lot of times the strategy is to try to get yourself as close to the edge where you feel comfortable that the car's not spinning out braking under entry. Put the brake bias there, and then leave it there. So if you want to really maximize things in the garage, put your brake bias to 3% higher than what you want it to be in the race. Walk it all the way down under your pace lap to -3%, so that when you're coming in for a pit stop, you add 6% to your brake bias, which gives you the most stable stopping power when you're stopping in a straight line. But if you want adjustability throughout the race, find a good medium point that you can go up and down from. But you can only adjust in the car plus or minus 3% from whatever you have it set in the garage. B again to the next menu. This is your graphics adjustments. All kinds of stuff here. We're not going to go through everything, but this has to do with, well, let's just see. So you can adjust the mirror, left side, rear view, mirror. You can adjust the yaw and the pitch, but I have those turned off. But you can adjust. Those are the mirrors that you see there and there on the screen. I have those turned off because I've got that big old center mirror there, and that's all I need. But if you look at the V mirror, FOV, If I move this over to the right, you can see how that's changing it. And if I move it to the left, you can see how it's sort of moving it in. More FOV will give you a wider angle view and more vision on either side. Less FOV will reduce that objects in mirror are closer than they appear sensation. So the more FOV you have, the more you'll be able to see, but the harder it might be to judge how close a car that's showing up there is actually to you. Driving FOV. Increasing this is going to pull your FOV back, and you can, if you pull it back too far, you can end up with a little bit of a fisheye look. Going in further will reduce the amount that you can see out of the sides and might reduce your ability to see the gauges, and can almost, if you get too far in, make it look like the track's almost flat. It can have a really weird look. So find an FOV that is comfortable. I believe I was at 78 at the start of this video. Shift horizon, that's move it up or down. Driver height, and then FFB strength. And if you do a couple laps, you can hit that A key again, and just it'll have an option to set it for iRacing to automatically set it. That's generally what's recommended, but you can increase or decrease the force feedback strength of your wheel. And then we've got the radio. You can shift through all these, so I can switch from all teams to drivers, or I can switch over to my team, or if I set a custom channel, which I actually need, is another thing. If you click away from the game for something, then there we go. Just give me my custom channel name. Now that you actually do have to type on the keyboard, but then, you know, I can scroll down through there and select my custom radio channel. You can also go over to the left and turn off the audio. So if you're like, those drivers are really boring me, I don't want to, or annoying me, I want to turn off all the drivers, you can just mute everyone. So you've got that. And that is it. So again, set buttons that allow you to navigate next and previous black box. Set a button that allows you to toggle options on and off. Really useful in particular for tires. And then set your hat switch so that you can navigate up and down in the menu and adjust things left or right. So, you know, again, if I've got my hand on the wheel, I can just do this very easily with my thumb and just sort of with very small movements, not even having to look at it, just kind of look at that and keep my hands on the wheel, keep driving at speed, and make little adjustments that I need to do. If I'm driving along, it's pretty easy for me to tap the B button or the X button and be like, okay, how many laps do I have left in my fuel, for example. So that's it. I hope that was useful. I want to thank you guys for if you've watched this thing all the way through. I hope that was helpful. And I'm planning on doing some more tutorial videos and things like this that will hopefully be useful and help folks to get just better at sim racing and learn how to be a better sim racer. So thank you guys very much. My name is John Theodore. I do stream live on Twitch Sunday nights and Monday nights are league nights, and then usually Thursday night is NIS fixed right now. That schedule is subject to change, so you can check my Discord for the latest schedule, or if you go over to twitch.tv/John_A_Theodore, click the heart to give me a follow and enable notifications. You can get notified when I go live. So yeah, thank you guys very much, and have a good one. Peace out.